Listen closely to the music of the 1950s, the heartbeat of the doo-wop era. You hear the smooth, soaring harmonies of the Platters, the first rock and roll era group to have a top 10 album in the United States. They sold over 80 million records worldwide, crossing the rigid racial lines of a divided America. But standing amidst those four talented men was a pioneer, a singular voice that redefined the sound of an entire generation. Zola Taylor. She was not just a girl singer among a male group, a revolutionary concept at the time. She was the sweetness, the unique baby voice that made their crossover appeal irresistible. Yet, for all her contribution to the group's legendary success with hits like Only You and The Great Pretender, Zola Taylor's personal story was often overshadowed by the industry's harsh realities, legal battles, and a heartbreaking entanglement with the young, tragic star Frankie Lyman. Beneath the glamour of the Cadillacs and the applause, there was a woman fighting for her dignity and legacy. She broke barriers with her voice, but what price did she pay in the turbulent decades that followed? Born on March 17, 1938, in Los Angeles, California, Zola Taylor arrived in a world steeped in R&B and gospel. Her earliest steps into the music industry were surprisingly quick, a testament to her natural ability. By the age of 11, she was already recording as a solo artist. In 1954, she officially signed with RPM Records, releasing her first single, Make Love to Me, with Oh My Dear on the B-side. This was a solo debut that hinted at the sophisticated voice the world would soon recognize. However, the path of a young black artist in the pre-civil rights doo-wop era was fraught with hurdles and strict social codes. Her mother's concern for Zola's reputation and safety was evident early on. Zola Taylor briefly joined the girl group Shirley Gunter and the Queens. But, according to an interview Zola gave, her mother quickly made her leave the group, fearing the older girls were too fast and would negatively influence her 12-year-old daughter. It was a protective measure that, ironically, pushed her toward a far more groundbreaking and ultimately tumultuous path. The Platters were already established as an all-male singing group when they first signed with Federal Records. The original lineup included Cornell Gunter, Herb Reed, Alex Hodge, Joe Jefferson, and Curtis Williams. But they were not yet making significant noise on the charts. A major overhaul was needed to transform them from a regional act into a global phenomenon. The catalyst for this change was manager Buck Ram. Buck Ram was hired by Federal Records and quickly secured a new deal with Mercury Records, leveraging the success of his other group, the Penguins, known for Earth Angel. Ram was known for being different. He was a manager who actually tried to look out for his artists, especially black artists, which was an anomaly at the time. Ram immediately revamped the group, getting rid of Alex Hodge and Joe Jefferson, bringing in new members Tony Williams, Paul Robbie, and David Lynch. But his most radical move was the addition of a female voice. Buck Ram had heard the Platters singing backup for a singer he managed named Linda Hayes and was captivated by how the blend of male and female voices sounded. He realized this unexpected dynamic was the secret sauce. Ram looked toward Shirley Gunter and the Queens, the group Zola had recently departed, and identified the perfect fit. Zola Taylor, still only 13 years old when she was with the previous group, was selected. The idea of adding a girl singer to an all-male black group was revolutionary, setting a trend that other groups would later follow. Herb Reed, the only remaining original member and the one who came up with the name The Platters, immediately saw her potential. He noted her charisma, her very pretty young lady with a great smile, and most importantly, her unique voice. Her voice was described as a contralto, a big voice with a distinctive sweetness and a little bite, but often sounding like a baby voice. This distinct, effortless vocal quality created an immediate and captivating blend with the male members. The moment she stepped onto the stage, things shifted. Some of the male members, Herb Reed recalled, were actually a bit jealous of Zola's effortless talent, which forced them all to work harder to keep up with her. This new configuration of 4 men and 1 woman led to them being called the 4 Platters and a Dish, with Zola Taylor as the undisputed Dish. She was the face of their boundary-breaking sound, transforming the Platters from a struggling R&B act into an iconic symbol of the emerging doo-wop era. The stage was set for global success, But the pressures of fame, racial tension, and a predatory industry were about to test her resolve. With Zola Taylor's unique voice anchoring their sound, the Platters became unstoppable. In June 1955, they released the single Only You and You Alone. The song became an immediate sensation, hitting #1 on the R&B charts for 7 weeks and climbing to #5 on the Billboard Top 100 chart, staying on the charts for an impressive 30 weeks. This success was the first sign that their new formula, a blend of R&B soul with melodic, simple, and catchy pop sensibilities, had global appeal. Their music truly had crossover appeal, beloved by both black and white teens. The tipping point came when the legendary DJ Alan Freed, known for popularizing rock and roll, played their record on his radio station, launching them to an entirely new level of fame. The commercial and artistic peak continued just months later. In November 1955, they released The Great Pretender, which soared to #1 on the R&B charts and #2 on Billboard's Top 100. Manager Buck Ram claimed he wrote the song in about 20 minutes in a hotel bathroom, a casual origin for what would become an anthem. Even the incomparable Sam Cooke recorded a cover version of it, cementing its status as a foundational hit of the Doo-Wop era. Zola Taylor and the Platters weren't just charting hits. They were making history. They performed both Only You and The Great Pretender in the seminal 1956 movie Rock Around the Clock, and later appeared in The Girl Can't Help It. Their records gave them a global platform, leading to more chart toppers like My Prayer, 1956, which hit #1 on the Billboard Top 100, and Twilight Time, 1958, which repeated the feat the pinnacle arrived with Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, 1958. A classic that hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 after they recorded it while on tour in France. In an era where black artists, despite massive sales, were often exploited and robbed of their fair royalties, the structure established by Buck Ram offered a rare measure of financial security. Ram set up a company called Five Platters Incorporated. Crucially, he made sure that each member, including Zola Taylor, owned 20% of the stock and received equal salaries. This was groundbreaking management for a black group in the 1950s, ensuring that the artists, for a time, shared in the immense wealth generated by their 80 million records sold worldwide. Zola Taylor and the group were reportedly making about $1,500 a week doing 8 shows a day, which was excellent money then. Despite their staggering commercial success and status as global superstars, Zola and her bandmates could not escape the harsh reality of American racism. They were constantly on the road, performing on the Chitlin Circuit and national tours, where Jim Crow laws were strictly enforced. Herb Reed recalled in an interview that even as the Platters, they still faced daily humiliation. They couldn't eat at white restaurants or stay at white hotels. Taxi cabs refused to pick them up because they were black. The Platters were one of the first groups to feature both black and white artists performing on the same bill, a revolutionary step that infuriated segregationists. One night in Birmingham, Alabama, this racial hostility boiled over. The Ku Klux Klan showed up at their performance, holding posters that declared their music, "Jungle music is integration." They were a symbol of cultural integration, and they paid a price for it. The success of Zola Taylor had made her a prominent, visible figure. Overseas, her fame was so great that during a show in Morocco, one of the king's sons offered Zola Taylor $25,000 in cash to become his chief wife in his harem. She turned the offer down. While she navigated royal proposals abroad, at home, she was navigating the treacherous racial landscape. This constant tension between their global celebrity status and the systemic abuse they faced on the road formed the backdrop of their dazzling but fragile career. The next challenge would prove far more devastating. A crisis engineered by a system that seemed intent on punishing black success. In 1959, at the height of their success, a devastating blow struck the Platters. The 4 male members, Tony Williams, Herb Reed, Paul Robbie, and David Lynch, were arrested in a Cincinnati hotel. They were accused of using drugs and soliciting prostitutes. The core details were that they were with 4 19-year-old women, 1 black and 3 white. At the time, the legal age in Ohio was 21. However, this was more than just a morals charge. The group was arrested for violating Ohio's Jim Crow race laws. It was still illegal in the state for black men to have white women in hotel rooms. The incident was quickly weaponized by a system that resented their integrated success and massive crossover appeal. The charge was an echo of the KKK's earlier protests, a punishment for integration disguised as a crime. Although the members of the Platters ultimately beat the charges and were found not guilty, the damage was irreparable. The media frenzy, fueled by racial prejudice, ensured that radio stations immediately stopped playing their music. No one wanted to book or promote them anymore. The commercial machinery that had created them now crushed them. Tony Williams, the lead singer, stopped making appearances, and the magic that defined the doo-wop era began to fade. As the group's foundation crumbled, Zola Taylor's personal life became increasingly unstable. Her first marriage to Lawrence James Savage in 1963 lasted only 1 year. Her next partner would be the young, volatile star Frankie Lyman, who she had first met in 1956. Frankie Lyman, only 14 at the time, was already a sensation with his group, the Teenagers, and their hit, Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Zola was 18. They met on the legendary Alan Freed bus tour. Zola recounted that their first intimate encounter happened on a night in Bangor, Maine, after Frankie had won $1,700 gambling. Their relationship was an on-again, off-again affair that spanned several years. By 1965, the year Zola Taylor turned 27, she and Frankie Lyman got back together. Just like in the tragic movie, Frankie showed up unannounced at Zola's big house in Los Angeles. She immediately took him shopping for new suits and tuxedos and tried to help him revive his career. They got married in Tijuana, Mexico. However, the marriage was fleeting and devastating. Zola went on tour with a version of the Platters in Japan. When she returned home months later, the house was in foreclosure. Frankie had taken her money and disappeared back to New York. Zola had been used, betrayed by the turbulent and tragic figure she had tried to save. Frankie later told people their marriage was merely a publicity stunt. The betrayal and instability compounded Zola's struggles. Manager Buck Ram attempted to discredit Zola, claiming her drinking was out of control and had caused her to gain a lot of weight, making her difficult to deal with. The external pressures of the Cincinnati scandal and the internal pressures of a fading career led to the ultimate breakdown of the original The Platters lineup. Tragedy soon claimed her former lover. On February 27, 1968, Frankie Lyman was found dead of a heroin overdose on the bathroom floor of his grandmother's house in Harlem, New York. He was only 25 years old. Zola Taylor was left grappling with the ruins of her personal life and a career hijacked by scandal and systemic prejudice. She continued touring with her own groups, the original Platters and Zola and the Platters, trying to reclaim the legacy that had been so cruelly taken from her. But the biggest legal challenge, a fight over the rights to Frankie Lyman's genius, was yet to come. Following the devastating Cincinnati scandal and the departure of Tony Williams, the original structure of the Platters had fractured. Zola Taylor continued to tour, using variations of the group's name, the original Platters or Zola and the Platters, a common, yet legally precarious, way for former members to sustain their careers. The world began to see the Platters as a brand, a sound, rather than a fixed group. But Zola Taylor's life took an unexpected, dramatic turn into a high-stakes legal battle, one that exposed the predatory nature of the music industry toward its black pioneers. This legal fight centered not on the Platters, but on her tragic ex-husband, Frankie Lyman. Following the massive success of Diana Ross's cover of Why Do Fools Fall in Love in 1981, the original copyright term for Lyman's signature song was expiring, triggering a fight over millions in royalties. 3 women, Amira Eagle, Elizabeth Waters, and Zola Taylor, all filed lawsuits claiming to be the legitimate widow of Lyman. The mogul behind the scenes was Morris Levy, who had once signed Lyman. Knowing he was about to lose the case to Amira Eagle, Lyman's third wife, Levy attempted to sabotage her lawsuit. He brought in Elizabeth Waters and Zola Taylor, having both signed contracts assigning the song's copyright to his publishing company in exchange for a meager advance. Zola Taylor received just $1,500 against her share of future royalties. Levy's aim was to confuse the court and avoid paying millions. In court, Zola Taylor could not provide the required marriage license or documents to prove her union with Frankie Lyman was legal, as she had married him in Tijuana, Mexico. Ultimately, Amira Eagle won the case, being recognized as Lyman's legitimate widow. Zola Taylor was officially ruled out. Her life, much like her relationship with Lyman, was left without the financial closure she deserved. Despite the legal defeat, the story of Zola Taylor reached a new generation through popular culture. The 1998 movie Why Do Fools Fall in Love dramatized the entire legal battle, with Halle Berry portraying Zola Taylor. This brought the complexities of Zola's life, her beauty, her vulnerability, and her fight for recognition, back into the American spotlight. Though she never earned the title of the undisputed Queen of Soul, she was undoubtedly royalty of the Doo-Wop era. A true pioneer who navigated racism, scandal, and personal tragedy. Yet her legacy, though fractured, remained indelible. The whirlwind career of Zola Taylor, a true pioneer of the Doo-Wop era, came to a quiet close in 1990 when she suffered a stroke, forcing her to stop performing. She had spent years touring with her own groups, trying to maintain a tangible link to the golden age she helped create. Her fight for recognition, particularly in the bitter legal war over Frankie Lyman's royalties, left her without the financial security her talent deserved. The world recognized the magic of the 5 voices that made up the Platters. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990 and the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 1998. But Zola Taylor's personal journey highlights the profound cost of being a black trailblazer in a segregated industry. She broke barriers with her presence and her unique contralto voice, which blended a childlike sweetness with powerful R&B soul. She was the dish, the essential ingredient, the reason for the Platters' revolutionary sound. Ultimately, the most enduring part of Zola Taylor's legacy is not just the 80 million records sold or the Hall of Fame inductions. It is the story of a woman who, in a time of strict racial and gender roles, stood center stage and demanded to be heard. She was the unsung queen of soul in the making, whose personal tragedy often eclipsed her professional brilliance. On April 30th, 2007, Zola Taylor passed away at the age of 69 due to complications from multiple strokes. She never had children, leaving her musical genius as her only lasting biological descendant. Her story is a necessary reminder that the biggest stars of the doo-wop era were often subject to the harshest injustices. Her life was a melody of triumph and heartbreak, a song that resonates with dignity, resilience, and the quiet pain of a legend who had to fight for every note. If Zola Taylor's voice, the one that helped define a generation, still holds power over you, let us know which the Platters song means the most to you in the comments below. Her struggle reminds us that we must never stop honoring the true pioneers who fought for their place on the American stage.